You mentioned just broad terms, masculine and feminine, for us to come together. Is this as we currently exist, or are we striving for something beyond the current idea of masculinity or femininity? Because we're looking pretty jacked up out here.
Okay.
So like we look like we'd end up jacked up together. So what does divine masculine, divine feminine look like, express like as within a whole being? Like within the self, not just because it sounds dual, where it's incumbent upon us to have the merging of the divine feminine and masculine within ourselves, and then others have it, so male can do that, and then the females do that, and then you can get together and you have this awesome hodgepodge of divinity going on.
And so when you begin to ascend spiritually and consciously as a planet, people on the planet, what could happen is when we get to a certain level, we could begin to activate genes that have been dormant for eons or maybe never even activated before, that will give us the capability of tapping into other light spectrums, hearing sounds that we couldn't hear on specific frequencies we couldn't hear before. It's all about turning off or on a gene. You turn a gene on, all of a sudden you got superpowers. You turn that gene back off, you lose all your superpowers again. So it could be about the way our genes express themselves in correlation with how we ascend consciously. And that the higher we go, the more superpowers we get because the more genes are being activated.
Welcome to Call for the Truth. I am LaOta of the Sun, and this is Tarvars of the Sun. And today we're going to be talking about Christ consciousness. But before we begin, Tarvars, will you bring us in with the Call for the Truth?
Most certainly. We encourage you all to join us in the call for the truth. Should we call forth the frequency of truth to come forward? Should we call to see the truth in all that we see? Should we call to hear the truth in all that we hear? Should we call to speak the truth, calling forth the courage to speak the truth? Shall we call forth nothing less than the truth to come forward into our experience? And so we are here speaking on today's topic, Christ consciousness. So not to be confused with Jesus. So where would you like to start with this? What is this? What's the whole point? First off, what is Christ consciousness?
So this talk we're having is a follow-up to a talk we had about the light body. And all of these things are really one thing, us getting back to who we were originally designed to be. And in almost all of the esoteric teachings through all of time, it was always said that the light is within you, the Christ consciousness is within you, you will do greater things than I have ever done. And it goes on and on and on and on. And so so we're all familiar with this idea through whatever method we have gotten it from. The idea being that you will be what you were designed to be, which is a being that can generate the necessary power and energy to hit the Christos, or the Christ consciousness, which is above the 12th chakra system. It is the idea of mother, father, Christ child. It is the idea of the coming together of the divine masculine and the divine feminine, and then what they produce as one is what would be considered the creation being, or the Christos, or that being which is the creator, who then replicates itself.
So it sounds like we have masculine and feminine energies incorporated with this idea. Like what's that process look like in terms of like a person cultivating? Because you mentioned light body is somewhat of a precursor to the idea of Christ consciousness. So where does the divine masculine, divine feminine come into that process of light body?
In this time that we live in, there's so much separation that has been done intentionally, on purpose and by design, to keep us from accessing the power of the beings that we actually are, so that we're really more used as a commodity or an energy source. But the reality is that we are greater than that, but we are greater in the polarity of both aspects of creation. So there's the creation is the divine masculine and the divine feminine, but in the separation that our world has been in and our history has reflected, there is only the masculine aspect being honored, and the feminine aspect is whatever's left over, so to say. So in the combining of the proper respect for both polarities of creation, there's the opportunity of coming together as one. And this is the idea of being able to access the power of the entire idea instead of just one aspect of it, just the feminine or just the masculine. So it is oneness. It is through oneness that can be achieved, and it is only through oneness that it can be achieved, which is a misnomer.
That makes sense. So, like you mentioned, just broad terms, masculine and feminine, for us to come together. Is this as we currently exist, or are we striving for something beyond the current idea of masculinity or femininity? Because we're looking pretty jacked up out here. Okay. So like we look like we'd end up jacked up together. So what does divine masculine, divine feminine look like, express like as within a whole being, like within the self, not just because it sounds dual, where you have it's incumbent upon us to have the merging of the divine feminine and masculine within ourselves, and then others have it, so male can do that, and then the female can do that, and you can get together and you have this awesome hodgepodge of divinity going on. But please speak to me on that.
So we are at the beginning of cultivating or bringing the divine feminine and divine masculine into their godly divine power. So we begin, and this is not all that there is, but we begin by calling on the divine feminine to have honor, respect, and gratitude for self and for everyone else. So we've been cultivating that of the sun. Our logo reflects that in the moment, but our new logo will reflect the divine masculine and the divine feminine. So we've been working on calling for from within ourselves honor, respect, and gratitude. And then this helps to offset all things unlike that. We are also at the beginning of calling for the attributes of the divine masculine, and of course they exist beyond the things I'm going to say, but this is our beginning point. We call for integrity, discipline, and action from the masculine to mix with the honor, respect, and gratitude from the feminine that will give us a working movement forward in oneness. If we can work on that, if we can spend time saying to ourselves, I'm calling for honor, respect, and gratitude, and then recognize that we're one of two polarities, so we also have integrity, discipline, and action, and the masculine also has honor, respect, and gratitude, and that these things must work together, but that there's still two polarities, like the yin and the yang, or the fact that we have one brain with two parts. So there's specialized areas, but if something goes wrong, then the other area will take over that duty. So it's a similar idea that in the separation of the masculine and the feminine and the suppression of the feminine on either side, that in that dynamic, we have lost part of the wholeness. So we've lost the aspect that would help our world be more balanced and the world being run through the masculine. And the same has applied in ancient history with the feminine. So the response or the ideal would be to use both sides of our brain, or both aspects of the divine polarity. The cosmic polarities are divine masculine and feminine, and that then births the Christ consciousness. Yeah. Then we can bring into our world a balanced being who has both. That then can be the Christos, or the coming together of the elevation of humanity in Christ consciousness. And it's written in every esoteric book already, but it's not well understood.
Yeah, I understand that sometimes it goes even by different names and what people call the Buddhic body and things like that. And there's many other terms that we don't have to go into, but it's the principle,
The
essentially.
principle is correct, and no matter what language or what name it has, it is not that everything must be under the same name and everybody must be able to identify with that particular thing. It's that the concept of oneness and the idea of honor, respect, gratitude, integrity, discipline, and action, that is to be what we look at as a goal or a model for the new world, for the oneness, because we can look around ourselves and see what separation has gotten us. So again, this is something we would encourage people to join on to Of the Sun for the light body movement, so that you can begin to activate your light body so that much of what is erroneous will become illuminated and you can release it so that you can see the benefit of moving forward. But this is only for those who want to shift and change out of the world that they're currently in. So I hope that answers that.
Yeah. What does DNA activation have to do with this? Because there's material that we do recommend to clients that allude to this idea of humanity's DNA being severed, how that correlates with our levels of overall consciousness, for Christ consciousness to even be an obtainable thing. So would you expound on that?
The idea of, and this is scientifically supported, the idea that humans have 2 strands of DNA is not our original design. We have been tampered with. We have been contaminated. We have been made into a hybrid. However, we remain divine. We can call forth the aspect of us that can come forward in wholeness because it exists within us. In the same way that we are made from creation and that exists within us. So we can call forth that aspect through all of the polarities and all that has been promised through all of the historical texts. So the idea of DNA is that it was not really available to the level of consciousness of humanity until the last 20, 25, 30 years. But now it is possible to resuscitate all of the strands of DNA that are part of the blueprint. And we have a service called DNA activation where we do it. The thing that I think is most important to know about it is that there's a responsibility for those who have this service done or who are in the process of resuscitating their DNA, and their responsibility is to stay highly vibrational enough to replicate the DNA. And this is where the challenge is for most people, because they may have to make choices that are different than the choices they've already made or the choices that are available in their environments. So this is something we encourage people to do if they're ready to choose a different life.
I mean, it only makes sense. If you're looking to stretch into a higher dimensional experience, you can't carry the density that just don't really exist there.
Right.
At least within the human template, there's things we can't take there.
Yes, there are things that are happening on Earth with the food and processed systems and pharmaceuticals and many things, even our emotional palette, our willingness to be angry and our willingness to hate people and our willingness to fight is not something that can come into that in that way. We need to fight what is within us that doesn't want to live. You know, our energies of trying to fight outside of us are a distortion in our aspects of reality, because whatever is inside of us is standing in front of us. So I don't want to get too far into that because that's a complicated idea, but yes.
To each his own. I don't know. So another question: what's the point of Christ consciousness? Like, what's the overall goal? Like, you kind of mentioned it about those who are in the simulation, those who are interested in light body, and this whole light body movement having multiple people and what that brings about. And we understand light body is like a prerequisite to fully embody that Christ energy that's inherent, remembering the face of your mother and your father, the divine. So like, what's the complete goal, and what does that even look like for people, for the world, you know?
The idea of Christ consciousness is a return to who you are. So in our esoteric teachings and our religious teachings, we are taught that that is something separate from us, and that it's something someone else has. That there's someone else who's the Christ. There's someone else who, you know, is the Son of the Father. The reality is that we are all of that, and our path to eternal, universal elevation requires us to step through the door of wholeness and oneness to be able to achieve what has not been shared with us, the fact that we can be stars in the night sky, that the stars in the night sky were once individuals. They were once organic beings as we are, and that they are now showing the way in our landscape. For us to achieve whatever it is we want to achieve, the doorway of wholeness must be the doorway we walk through, where all aspects of our polarities, all aspects of who we are, who we were born to be, become available to us, and that we throw aside any chains or limitations imposed by those who run our planet, or those who are off planet, who interfere with our planet, or those who may have taken away our 10 strands of DNA to make us better servants. We are not servants. We should serve ourselves and then serve each other, not be diminished by having less biology available to achieve our own goals. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Question for you. What does the sun have to do with this? And I'm using it because, you know, Christ, the sun, and then the sun, and people who have done their esoteric studies have, you know, they've done the math and they see it makes sense. But what's your thoughts on that? Because, you know, you go by LaOta of the sun.
Well, I think what people have said about it is true, is that it is clear that the power that we see, that is the action that is coming from the cosmic landscape that animates life and grows all things, is the light that we are attached to. It's in our language. You know, I am a person, so I'm part of the sun, as we are all part of the sun. And it is this idea that the sun holds not only the idea of being a collective, cosmic, larger consciousness than us as humans, which is what it is, a larger consciousness. It is also a consciousness made up of smaller consciousness. So in that, what we see as the glowing, fiery, that is us in that iteration as the beings that are, even in astrology, they tell you all the houses represent those who are in the sun. So, I mean, it's written in every place. The iteration is just misunderstood. So we are individual suns, but we first have to light up our own sun, our own solar plexus. And then then we can join the family of those who are other aspects of the sun. And then we have the power to determine our own destinies. We have the power to move into the next dimensional worlds. We have the power to be able to be whatever it is that we are inspired to be, because the power exists. We don't have to go to someone else's place of where they will then endow us, where we kiss their ring and then they give us the power to go have the power to go do the thing. Where when you have your light body, you don't have to kiss the ring. You just go find whatever you need to learn, and you go learn it from whoever and however you learn it. It's not in the iteration that it is here that you have to do the thing in the way you have to do it, or the red tape will keep you from doing it. So this kind of moves out all of the limitation when you know that you know that you know that you are whatever that is. You are the artist, you are the actor, you are the mother. No one can take that. Nobody could say, well, you're not mother no more, because your knowingness prohibits it. So this is this idea of growing into who we are, our blueprints. I don't know if that's clear or not.
I think so. I think this is a solid place to build the foundation on. You have any other thoughts before we jump into the call for the truth?
I'd like to hear what you have found about your own light body.
Just that the experience of cultivating a light body allows for moving into more of a sense of being whole. You know, cultivating a light body, you realize like the neediness that people feel to have others in their experience is not a need. It might be a desire. It would be nice, but when you're whole, you have you know, and then it's so multifaceted, because even the processes that we go through of drawing light into each center, it strengthens and fortifies, as you mentioned, weaknesses within the solar plexus where we have some type of insecurity or levels of devaluement regarding the outside world. When your light body is activated, there's less of that.
Yes.
It don't mean, you know, you might not have it, but you're much stronger than what you were, and then oftentimes you can catch it and rebound. But that's what's needed to get up here. I mean, and you mentioned people are operating up here, and sometimes it's dark, but the goal that I understand is to be balanced within each center, and I feel more balanced. I feel more of my power. Even some of my intuitive abilities and gifts have opened up even more. You know, it's so multifaceted, but I would say that's part of my experience in short.
I think, and I just want to ask one more question before we go, that you have, that other people notice that you have shifted from wherever you were to wherever your practices and diligence has led you in your light body. So do people recognize it when they see you?
Yeah, people who know me and people who don't. It's obvious, you know.
How do they show it?
I think with the third dimension, it's interesting because they, you know, they see the hologram, right? They see this, but their perception is they're picking up on more than just this, what they see. It might look like it's a nice looking guy, but you've used this term, the gestalt. Like, hey, you got a nice hat, or I like them pants and shoes, guy. But it's the gestalt, it's the entirety of the being. You know, it's just an aspect of the expression of who I really am. And part of the cultivation of this allows for the expression to come about anyway, you know, in such a way where I'm not concerned or wearing things for another person. I'm doing this just for the glory of self and self-adoration, and let me shine and show you what's possible. And people pick up on that, but sometimes from a third dimensional level, but it can't be denied. I think people who have been around, I've even gotten messages from people saying, yo, keep it up, man. I like what you're doing. I see you, man. You've grown so much. And it's appreciative, you know, to have someone from the outside world acknowledge you. There's been others who have said things like that as well, but it's definitely, especially people who have seen the process, you know, and thinking about our office admin, she says things like, you're not looking ashy, you know, you're glowing. So those are some things that have been said.
I think this is really important for those of you who are listening, are interested in joining the light body movement, that in the third dimensional world, we're pretty much playing whack-a-mole. You stick your head up and say, I got an idea. Somebody tries to hit you with a hammer. You know, you say, look how good I look. Somebody tries to hit you with a hammer. Like, who do you think you are? When you have the light body, it moves all of the anti-life back. It doesn't mean it's gone away. It still exists, but it's not on top of you. And it doesn't have a hammer in its hand. It's not whack-a-mole. So I'd like for you to pull a card if you've thought about a question for today, if you'll share.
As usual, it's going to be the truth that we must hear regarding the concept of Christ consciousness, asking to see the truth.
Ah.
Gotta ask. Yeah. The theme is sacred space. Everywhere you step is sacred space, but you need to own it, know it, and be it.
That is so the answer to the question of light body. That is another, there's a million answers, and that's one of them. Every place I place my foot is sacred space. That's what we all should be able to say. And we thank you so much for joining us. We leave you in the greetings of In Lak'ech Veritas with honor, respect, and gratitude. Thank you.